Hey, welcome in. Another Monday night, just like we do it every week, 7 p.m. Monday night. We will be right here, barring some kind of natural disaster or something. Appreciate everybody that's tuning in. Clemson keeps that offense just keeps chugging right along. Another blowout win. Didn't quite cover the spread, but not a bad way to go into a bye week. Louisville up next. Still some areas for improvement, absolutely, particularly once you get deeper into the bench on the defensive side of the ball. But overall, I kind of like the spot the defense is in. I think they played it. They've been pretty good against the run. Going back to the Florida State game, I thought they were pretty good last week against the run, and then I thought they were pretty good. Keeping Virginia's quarterback, bottled up. They let him get out of the pocket one time, and he beat him on a 20-yard run on a third and long. But outside of that, I thought they kept him contained. The third and fourth string guys giving up some plays there in the last half of the fourth quarter kind of makes that thing look a little bit, a little closer than it actually was. I think it was 41-10 when the fourth quarter started, if I'm remembering right. So, the game was the final score was not quite indicative of what exactly how one-sided it was. Thought Cade over, he missed on a few. He definitely missed on a few throws, man. That throw he tried to hit, I think it was Brennings to win the end zone. That might be one of the worst passes I've ever seen watching football live. That thing, man, it was just absolutely airmailed. Still, I thought he played overall, pretty well. Outside of what he made, the one terrible decision with the pick, but good to see him. Not let it affect how he played moving forward. You can tell those things. He just kind of erases them now, and he just keeps going. And last year, that might have snowballed on him a little bit, and one pick might have turned into two, or a fumble, or some other boneheaded mistake. Not seeing him making very many of those this year. Again, I thought it was a good way to go into the bye week. You're right where you want to be. You control your own destiny. Unbeaten in ACC play. Still got some. You got the toughest part of your schedule coming up. Even though preseason we probably thought the first 5 games might be as tough as it got for Clemson. When North Carolina State was supposed to be pretty good, Florida State was supposed to be pretty good. Just hasn't turned out that way. Heck, even App State's not any good. Louisville definitely won't be a pushover. They gave Miami all they could handle Saturday. Miami needed another break from the officials to pull one out there at the end. Then you got to go on the road, Blacksburg, Virginia Tech, go on the road to Pitt, and then you get settled at home and then finish off South Carolina. And that game, each passing week that game looks tougher. I've said it for weeks, man. That defense is legit. I mean, I have said it over and over. They got dudes on that defensive front. They got dudes on the back end, particularly at corner. That defense is really good. But their offense, not so much. They got a quarterback who is very, very similar to what we saw with Cade last year. Just the game's still, too fast for him. Needs to slow down. Not a ton of playmakers on the outside to help him. I do like the receiver. They got the in-state kid, and his name's escaping me right now, but the in-state kid's been really good for him. And their running back Rockets, he's solid. I mean, I wouldn't call him elite. He's solid, but their offensive line's not very good. And again, their quarterbacks, Sellers has still got a lot of room to grow. He's kind of a turnover machine right now. It's kind of like a night and day difference. As good as their defense has been, their offense has just been, kind of like a chain around their ankle, ball and chain around their ankle, so to speak. Mazio Bennett, that is who I'm talking about. Thank you there. And if anybody hears my mic cutting out, let me know. This thing's brand new. If it's cutting out, I need to take it back. I know we had some issues with it week 4 last. But yeah, that South Carolina defense is really good. Really good. Has college football officiating hit rock bottom yet? I don't know how they could. I don't know if it could get any worse than what we saw the other night in that Texas and Georgia game. And I don't care if the call was right, wrong. That to me, that's irrelevant. You made the call on the field, and then 5 minutes later, you let the fans in the stands show their ass, and the referees are intimidated into changing their call once they had officially made it. That to me, that is just a travesty. It's a terrible, terrible precedent to set. And again, I don't care if the call was right or wrong originally. If you make a bad call, once you make it, that's it. You're stuck with it. That's not a play you can go back and review. And I'm not saying that they did go back and review it, although there is some chatter that that's exactly what happened, that some replay got involved, because I'm not buying the official story one bit that the referee that threw the flag told the head official wrong to begin with. And then, after he made the call in the game, it got paused for cleaning up the mess on the field. He realized he had made a mistake. I ain't buying that story. The whole thing stinks. If you're going to throw a flag and you're going to tell your head referee, hey, this is the call, and your head referee makes that call, have the fortitude to stick to it. If you got it wrong, own it after the game. Referees are never going to be perfect, ever. That's, to me, that's one of the things that makes college or football or sporting events in general. That's a big part of it, the human element and the officiating. That's why I'm not a big believer in robotic umpires in Major League Baseball. I don't want to take the human element out of it. You live with the good calls or the breaks you get, and you live with the bad ones. It's a part of the game, has been since we've been playing football. But when you make a bad call, own it. Don't let a crowd intimidate you into changing it. to me, that was just I have never, in all my years watching football, I have never seen a referee make a call and then 3 minutes later come back and change it. I've never seen it. It's just I could not believe what I was watching, and I absolutely 100% believe that they were intimidated into changing that call. That's what I believe, and I don't know that my mind would be changed on that. Um, didn't really end up having an impact on the game. You know, Georgia still won the game. Didn't hurt them. And you know what? The call, I thought both the players were mixing it up. To me, I thought it should have been a no flag whatsoever. But if you were going to throw one, it probably should have went on the offensive guy. To me, that's neither here nor there. Once you make the call, stick with it. Sammy Brown's tackle for loss rate per snap is off the charts. Why did he get more playing time? I can't tell you what his tackle for loss per snap rate is right now because they haven't done the snap counts from Saturday's game yet, or hadn't last time I looked anyways. No, they still haven't. But the reason why he doesn't play more snaps is because he's not beat out the guys in front of him. Matter of fact, Dabo was actually asked, I think it was might have been after the Florida State game, on why Sammy hadn't played more snaps. He said one of the biggest reasons why, we put him in there and he has a big bust, which is why I can't remember if it was the Wake game or the Florida State game. I think it was one of those games, but he's just still he's taking most of his reps at Mike. There is a ton that goes into playing that position. It's a lot to learn. Go back over the years and look at how many freshmen have actually started games at either Mike or Will for Clemson, either the middle linebacker or the weak side linebacker. You're not going to find very many examples. I think I can think of one off the top of my head. I think Trey Lamar did, if I'm remembering right. But that's the only one I can think of. And the simple answer to your question is he's not beat out the guys in front of him. And year after year, especially the last couple years, in the last year or two in Brent Venables' tenure here, you see Clemson starting linebackers play almost all of the snaps. They rarely come off the field. Last year before last, Venables last year, I think his next to last year too, is just kind of the way it goes. That's the guys they trust, and they don't fully trust Sammy to that point yet. I even asked Sammy. It was the last, I guess it was the Stanford game. The game before Florida State. I'm guessing it was, the Stanford game. If he, if his role was about where he thought it was going to be, and if he was about where he thought he was going to be, and he said, yeah, he's right where he thought he was going to be. Wide receiver depth is finally overcoming the injuries. I think you got more depth at wide receiver, and I also think you got far less injuries. So I kind of think both things kind of play into that. But yeah, there is a lot more depth, but it also helps when, more than half your wide receiver room is healthy and available, because the last 3 years, that room has just been besieged by injury. I mean, it had almost become an epidemic, with the amount of injuries we'd seen to receivers, going back 3 years. But those two freshmen have, they've added a dynamic that's been missing, and it's kind of raised the bar for everybody else in that room. And I think we're seeing the results of that, plus those guys being able to stay healthy. The bench players on D weren't just a little bad; they were big bad. Yeah, Ashton Hampton had a bad play there with the pass interference. Then Brandon Strozer just gets burnt on the long touchdown pass. But I'll tell you one thing that I will say, because I keep seeing how if Clemson's second string defense has got to play, they're in trouble. You're never going to see the entire second string defense need to play. And Brandon Strozer ain't second team. It's a lot of third and fourth string guys that are out there, but it's going to skew the numbers. But that's about the only downside to it. It'll make your defensive numbers, stats, and things look a little worse than what they probably really are. But you need to get those guys those game reps. They're invaluable. You got to have the film to coach off of, and you never know when you might need one of those guys to go on the field for a play here or a play there. I just don't ever know. You need them ready when their number's called, and getting them some opportunities in garbage time is one of the best ways to do it. Jordan Young, I think his commitment day is November 2nd. Do you think South Carolina-Oklahoma game was really proof South Carolina is elite? I don't think South Carolina is elite. No matter what happened in that game, I think their defense is really good. I also know, as you mentioned here, Oklahoma's offense is putrid. You want to talk about a team being, just ravaged by injuries. Look at Oklahoma's offense. They're having a hard time finding healthy receivers themselves. I thought it was an extremely bad look for Venables to burn, that quarterback's red shirt the other day. I didn't get to watch much of that game since it was at noon going on the same time as Clemson's. I got to watch at it a little bit on the laptop. But, yeah, I think their defense is legit. You want to call them elite? I don't know. I think we're splitting hairs there. But that front four is stout. They got dudes up there that are going to be playing on Sundays. They got corners that are going to be playing on Sundays. Not as familiar with their linebackers because, again, I hadn't seen a ton of them this year. But I've seen enough to know that defense is really good. But, again, their offense is not scaring anybody. It's been a struggle bus for those guys. Again, Lenoris reminds me a lot of Cade Klubnik from this time last year. Man, everything's just so fast. Even on the plays where he doesn't have guys breathing down his neck and chasing him down, when he does have some time, everything's still rushed because he doesn't trust the protection. He's turning it over at an incredible pace. He's just still got a lot of growing to do, and I don't, outside of Bennett, they ain't got a lot of dudes at receiver. He's more type of a slot guy. And, the Rocket's solid at running back, but I wouldn't call him elite by any stretch. And, again, he's not running behind a very good offensive line. So, I would say their defense is a problem. Offense, not so much. Any hints on Jared Curtis? I don't know what it was about him including Clemson in his list of schools that stand out. He doesn't even have an offer from Clemson. I know very little about the guy. I've not followed him. I hadn't looked into him at all. I did a little bit Friday night after that came out. He's a 2026 guy. Decommitted from Georgia Friday, for any of y'all that don't know. Then immediately puts out a list of 6 schools that stand out to him, and Clemson's one of them. And of those 6 schools, if I'm remembering right, Clemson's the only one that has not offered. Problem with this is Clemson's already got 2 2026 quarterbacks on the board. They're not taking a third. The only way it would make any kind of sense is if he were to reclassify to 2025. Obviously, Clemson's still looking for a 2025 quarterback. But I've not heard one peep about this guy reclassifying. Nothing. I'm not sure I'm expecting him to. Again, I don't know why he put that on his list. There could be a number of reasons why, but he at this point he doesn't even have an offer. Not unless he reclassifies, I'm not sure one's coming. And I'm not saying one would come even if he did reclassify. This that again, I've not done a lot of asking around, but the little bit I've had, a little bit of asking around I've done, this recruitment seems to be going in a direction that probably Clemson wouldn't get involved in. But we'll see, But again, if he doesn't reclassify, I don't think there's anything to even talk about. Looks like Miami may have gotten another favorable call to help them. Yeah, well, at least this one wasn't as egregious. I mean, it was bang bang. It's right there, man. It was close. It was not as bad as the other two, but yeah, they needed the benefit of an overturned call to beat Louisville on Saturday. Absolutely. How do you feel about the stat that shows that Clemson only played one team that's considered a top 40 team so far this season? I didn't need David Hale to tell me that. I know North Carolina State's not any good. Wake Forest ain't any good. Florida State's not any good. App State's not any. I know that already. Virginia's not very good. Better than they have been. Top 40 still. No, I don't need David Hill to tell me that. I would say this, though. Go back and look at Clemson playing, those same kind of teams last year before last. And they were having to rely on the defense to bail them out a lot of the times and hold teams down because they just could not do anything offensively that would win the game for them. Every win was a struggle, until about midway last year when things kind of started halfway clicking just a little bit. To me, that's where I start comparing what's happening right now to what happened in the past. Clemson's doing to these teams what they're supposed to do to them, whereas last year they beat them by a touchdown, and it'll be a 4-quarter game. That's not happening this year. There are many, many, many real signs of growth and, signs that this team could compete with a lot of other teams out there. Are they a team capable of winning a national title? I'm not saying that by any stretch, but are they a team that could get into playoff and maybe win a game? Absolutely. I believe that right now. I just think there's a night and day difference at offensive line, quarterback, wide receiver. I think I think at running back, you got better by subtraction with Shipley leaving. Not at Moffitt's the dude. It's just, again, night and day difference on the offensive side of the ball. I don't care who you're playing. Last year, you could, again, I've said this before too. I remember last year them needing a 4th down conversion against Charleston Southern to really start pulling away from them. That's not happening this year. They're getting up on teams and putting them away and being able to empty the bench. They weren't able to empty the bench like that. I don't think against anybody last year that wasn't a FCS team or a G5 team. I'm not sure they did it then. I have to go back and look, but they're doing it week after week after week now, and that's not something we've seen in a long time. Do I think Tony didn't like Dabo putting in the second string? I don't think I think he knew it was coming. It's just what Dabo does. I just think that when you leave when you're down like that and a coach starts emptying his bench, it's a good opportunity for you to start getting some, keep doing what you do. And you can put more stuff on tape and have that to coach off of. I'm sure Dabo knew Tony wasn't going to quit coming. And he kept attacking, man. They was running, hurry up, throwing the ball down the field, kicking onside kicks. But no, on that last touchdown pass, Dabo even said after the game that he looked across the field and Tony's over there smiling at him, so he just gave him a tip of the cap. They're not. I don't think Tony was mad or anything like that. I am. I was intrigued by Dabo putting the first team offense back in. I've only ever seen him do that one time, and it was against Georgia Tech a few years ago, and he was a little irked about something. Makes me wonder if he didn't get a little irked about something in this game too, and he just wanted to put him back in and prove a point for a minute. Did ask him after the game why he put him back in, and he said it was because Virginia had pulled within 16, 2 scores, and he wanted to put the nail in the coffin. Said he tried to call the dogs off, but Tony wouldn't let him. So, but no, short answer to your question, no, I don't think so. Stellato almost got broken in half. Guy seems to get balls that get him blasted more than others. I Off the top of my head, I'm saying it's clean, but I didn't really go back and look at it that closely. I did go back and watch the game earlier this morning. I wanted to see what led up to the Virginia player getting so irate because I saw the clips of Tristan Lee kicking him in the head. And knowing Tristan and being around him a little bit the last few years, that it's just not something that he's known for. He's not just going to kick a dude in the head out of nowhere. So I did go back and watch some of it so I could get a little better insight in on that. But I didn't notice that it was a dirty hit or anything, but I'm not saying that it wasn't. But that dude's tough as nails, man. He takes some shots out there, and it's almost like he welcomes them. He sacrifices his body to go get some balls, man, and that's what you want for in a wideout, or that's what you want in a wideout. Clemson got burnt because of lack of depth against Georgia week 1. Dabo is getting that depth ready for the postseason. I mean, I guess that's a way to look at it. I don't really think lack of depth is why they lost. I think lack of discipline on the defensive side played a lot more into that than lack of depth. I've said it on here before. I don't buy into the notion that Clemson's defense was tired in that game. Georgia's defense was actually on the field more in the second half than Clemson's was. And they weren't like left out there for long stretches of time. I think, if I remember right, Georgia had one long scoring drive early in the second half, but other than that, they weren't like left out there for long stretches of time. I just think a lack of discipline got them that day. Their eyes weren't in the right spot, they weren't feeling the right feet, filling the right gaps, and overplaying stuff, and got burned on it. But yeah, to your main point here, yeah, I think they want to build some more depth. Absolutely. Particularly, on the back end of that defense. How would I describe Goodwin's base defensive set? 4-2-5. It's a nickel. Oklahoma, actually, I think they fired their offensive coordinator yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. Do you think Virginia Tech or Pitt game might be trap games for us this year? Do we dodge that hurdle? I don't know how Pitt could be a trap game. They are undefeated in ACC play and are a team you got to go through if you want to get to Charlotte. No, I don't think a trip to Blacksburg could ever be viewed as a trap game myself. It's not an easy place to play, even when Virginia Tech's not very good. They've kind of been a little up and down this year, probably not quite as good as people thought. They are 2-1 in the conference, though. Heck, I said Pitt's still they're undefeated, man. They're 6-0. I don't know that you're overlooking a 6-0 team, but I don't think either one of those. I don't know that you could consider either one of those trap games. I guess putting Clemson on your top schools list is a negotiation strategy. I didn't say that. I mean, it can be for some guys, but I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why you would use Clemson. They're not a school that's going to. It's widely known they're not getting in bidding wars over guys. So you're not using them is not really going to drive up your price. If it's not like you're going to get this offer and say, hey, I'm taking it back to Clemson because they know Dabo's not getting into bidding wars. If you want to go back, maybe look at Davis Sanders and when he included Nebraska as a finalist, a school that is kind of throwing around some money. If you're using a school like that, then yeah, I think that theory holds some water. But I don't know that it does with Clemson. It was just an odd thing for Curtis to put Clemson on that list. I just don't see it. Again, unless he reclassifies, and I've not heard a peep about it. Right here, Clemson scoring 40 points a game, and they were not scoring anywhere near that per game last year. When they're playing the bad teams, they're putting the beating on them like they did, 3, 4, 5 years ago. It is not a struggle with some of these teams that it was, last year before last, year before that. Will Antonio Williams enter the draft? I think that's a distinct possibility. Yeah, distinct possibility. Miami beats us for the ACC and we lose to Robert. I get it, man. You don't believe anything you're seeing with your eyes on Saturdays. I see you down here saying Clemson's going to get exposed at Pitt. I think I remember you saying preseason this was a 4 or 5 loss team, if I'm remembering right. Trust me, man. I used to be just like you. I used to be the ultimate pessimist, man. Everything was sky was falling every day and all that good stuff. But if Clemson gets beaten in the ACC championship game, guess what? And it's by Miami, then they got beat by a damn good team. Yeah, it happens. You're not going to win every time out. Miami's ranked in the top 5 for, I got questions about their defense, but I don't have any questions about their offense. It's as explosive as any I've watched so far this year. Cam Ward might be the best quarterback in the country. So if you lose to Miami, there's no shame in that, absolutely. But I don't see Clemson getting exposed up at Pitt. To me, when you say they get exposed, that means they get the doors blown off. I think Pitt's a pretty good football team too. Otherwise, they're not sitting here 6-0 right now. You know, I, I I know your opinions of the team. I got it loud and clear. Any thoughts on the Nate Wiggins interview? You think he was being a little led a little by the interviewer on those answers, or that he really feels that way? I didn't watch it. I know that he talked about NIL and stuff. I mean, the quote or two that I saw that came out of that. Yeah, I actually believe wholeheartedly that happened. um, when he says, I think it's something to the effect that he went that his agent told Clemson, to pay up or he was leaving. Yeah, I think that happens with a lot of players. I think it happened with several last year. I think there were several that were close to leaving that ultimately didn't. And I'd be surprised if you knew who some of them were. But that's everywhere. Kids are wanting to get paid what they think they're worth. We got to beat somebody. We can't control our schedule. The Georgia game showed we aren't there. The Georgia game didn't show shit. I mean, come on, Bo. It was 6 weeks ago. Heck, it was 2 months ago now almost. I mean, it's almost like we have gotten to the point where people believe teams cannot improve from 1 week to the next. Again, do I think Clemson's a national title contending team? No. Do I think they're one of the 10 best teams in the country? Yeah. But no offense, man, but you just dog on these guys week after week after week after week. We got to beat somebody. You can only play who's on the schedule. It ain't Clemson's fault that North Carolina State sucks this year. It ain't Clemson's fault that Florida State sucks this year. Florida State, a preseason top 10 team, won one game. North Carolina State, a team that a lot of people thought had a shot at winning ACC this year, just sucking wind. I think Clemson fans don't realize sometimes how good they got it. Is there a talent issue with the backups or the fact? I think the main thing with the backups is they're just young and inexperienced. Several years ago, like let's say before Trevor Lawrence left for the NFL and Clemson was blowing teams out and putting the backups in, they weren't freshmen and true freshmen. They were guys that had been in the program. They might have been third string guys, fourth string guys, but a lot of them had been around 2-3 years. They had a lot more experience in the program, even though they might not have had a lot of game experience. Now, when you got to go that deep into the bench, it's all true freshmen and redshirt freshmen. So to me, there's a big difference, and that is an effect the portals had on college football. You're just not going to get guys to hang around for 2, 3, 4 years to be backups, and that's not a Clemson. That's not just a Clemson thing. That's an everywhere thing. Didn't think we did all that bad against Georgia, close to a half. Then defense stayed on the field and got tired. See again, I don't buy the last part of that about the defense staying on the field and got tired. But here's where I would say is the difference. Those two freshman wideouts have just totally changed the offense, and we didn't see them in that first game hardly. It has just opened everything up. And what we saw in game one against Georgia was more of what was basically what we saw last year. Just steadily trying to attack the perimeter, not a lot of shots down the field. And I don't just I said it back then. I don't think that's the recipe to beat Georgia. Not attacking that perimeter of that defense, you're going to be hard pressed to have a lot of success. They just have so much sideline to sideline speed. Yeah, see, I can't. I didn't watch the Nate Wiggins interview, so I don't know what all he said. So I can't really comment on any of that stuff. The only thing I saw, I think it was a tweet with a quote in it where something about. I might have it right here. But
all right, give us. So you played
during
the NFL era, right?
Something about his agent had to go tell the school to pay him, but that happens everywhere. Shipley might not have been the best between the tackles runner. Do you think we miss having someone like him on those swing passes, receiving downs? I understand what you're asking, but I just don't think they miss it all that much. If you want to do those kind of things, you've got guys you can use. If you want to do little pop passes, you can use Antonio, you can use Stellato. I mean, if Tyler Brown were healthy, you could use him. You got some options, and I know that's not swing passes out the backfield, but I think Clemson did a lot of that last year because they had to. They just weren't able to push the ball down the field. They didn't have the pass protection. They didn't have the receivers. Didn't trust the quarterback to do it. I just think the whole offense is different now. The quarterbacks improved by leaps and bounds. Offensive lines night and day different. I just don't think you have to, rely heavily on a bunch of swing passes out of the backfield. So I'm just of the opinion that they don't miss Shipley all that much. I think Moffa's the more well-rounded back. Kind of always thought that. That might be the one edge Shipley has on him is his hands out of the backfield. But I don't even think Moffa's bad at that. If you want to use him on some screen passes, you could probably have some success doing that. I just don't think it's not something they, really need to do. They've got other options and other ways of moving the ball now. It looked like the Virginia player may have been going for Tristan's ankle. I saw him twist Tristan's leg 3 times before Tristan kicked him in the head. 3 times. And the last time was on the play, he got kicked in the head. I just saw somebody had just clipped the part. I'm sure it was a South Carolina fan. Had clipped the part where Tristan kicked him in the head, trying to make Tristan look bad. And, the only reason I saw it was because Daquan Bowers had retweeted it, kind of explained a little bit of, put some context with it. Nobody, it's always the guy that retaliates that usually gets caught. I don't know that a whole lot of people saw what the Virginia player was doing, and I don't know why he was so hot because he kind of had it coming. I'm telling you, there was a moment on the sideline that I thought he was going to hit Tony Elliott. I mean, he was just that out of control. See, I don't get that. How do you think South Carolina's better? What all of South Carolina's offense have you seen from those guys on that side of the ball that scares you? Because that's one team I've got to watch a little bit of this year. I've not seen anything from that offense that's scary. You take the pick six and the scoop and score out of that game Saturday, who knows what might have happened, because those things happened very early in North Carolina. I mean, Oklahoma suddenly in a 21-0 hole So it just kind of is what it is. But there is nothing about that offense that, I mean, even remotely suggests that it's better than Clemson's. Um, I would say their defenses are comparable. I don't know that I'd say theirs is better, but I don't see how anybody could say South Carolina's the better football team right now with that offense that they put on the field. I don't understand it. You're gonna have to explain that to me. Louisville has a fast, I guess, halfback that likes the outside. Clemson is showing weakness in the outside. You think West puts in a 4-3 for that game? I think Clemson's been much better setting the edge the past 3 weeks. Much better. Again, they gave up 67 yards to Virginia and, shut a dangerous quarterback down. They gave up very little to Wake Forest in the run game. Matter of fact, I got it right here. Hold on, let me pull it up and I can tell you exactly what it was. I remember they gave up, I think it was 22 yards against Florida State. The last 3 weeks, Clemson's run defense has been much better, and they've been much better by getting the edge set. They gave up 87 yards against Wake. And that's not a bad 3 weeks. I think it's much better than it was, the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. But no, I don't think West puts a 4-3 in for that game. No. I think there might be a situation here and there where he'll run a third linebacker out there, but as far as making that the base, no, I don't see it. People are forgetting it's not the second team giving up all those points. The ones and twos rotate routinely. It's the third and fourth. It's mostly the third and fourth. Ashton Hampton he got the PI right before that last touchdown, but he was on the field at that time. But yeah, it's mostly third and fourth string guys. It's not even the twos. Has Peter Woods been a disappointment this season? Well, he missed about 2.5 games. Yeah, I think it was. Pretty much missed 3 because he didn't play much when he came. He didn't play much against Wake Forest or whatever game it was when he came back. He only played like 20 snaps when that first came back. So if you kind of he only played half of that game, basically half against that. So he's really, he's missed 3 games. I thought he played pretty well Saturday. Matter of fact, Dabo said tonight he was one of the guys on defense that got the game ball. I forgot who the other one was, he said, but Peter Woods was one of those guys. I thought he played pretty well Saturday. He's not your typical defensive end. There are going to be areas where he's not going to perform like an elite level defensive end would, but I think he's been more than serviceable there, and I thought he was pretty dang good Saturday. This kind of South Carolina is not better than Clemson offensively. If I'm not mistaken, OK outgained South Carolina in yardage Saturday. I think they did. I would put them. I'd put them on par defensively, absolutely, man. But that offense is brutal. It is downright bad, man. If they're not fronted 21 points, who knows how that game plays out. Peter Woods has been hurt more than half the season. Is that considered a disappointment? I don't think it is. You'll never hear me knock a guy for being hurt, even if it's a guy that gets hurt every year. As a Clemson fan, we are in the playoff if we win out and miss ACC championship. If we win out and make ACC, we have to win to make playoff. I'm telling you, I've said it 100 times, man. If I'm an ACC team, I am not holding my breath waiting on an at-large bid. You better go win the ACC if you want to ensure yourself of a spot. Clemson has the money to retain the guys they want, but aren't forking over money to an unproven high school kid. Clemson ain't swimming in money, but they're not broke by any stretch. But if you're, no, Dabo's not going to just give a player money to sign. But the freshmen, they get NIL money. I promise you, Peter Woods did not come to Clemson to make no money. He's just not going to say, "Hey, I'll give you this to sign." It just don't work like that. I think Tay Harris has the potential to be one of the best safeties Dabo's ever had. I think Tay Harris is going to be really good. That dude is electric, man. I got to watch him play live earlier this season, and it was well worth the drive out there to watch him. He played not far from Atlanta. Same week Clemson played Georgia and Atlanta, so I made the trip over there to Alexander High School over there in Douglas County, and I was more than it was well worth the drive, that extra drive that day. The dude is dynamic with the ball in his hands. I know he's coming to Clemson to play safety, but some of that playmaking ability can translate to the defensive side of the ball. He's got excellent hands. He's excellent in coverage, but his speed, man, I don't know. He's going to be one of the more athletic, and if you combine athleticism and speed, he's going to be one of the best guys Clemson's had at safety in a while. I think Ricardo Jones can give you a little bit of that because I think he's crazy athletic and he's got some speed. But Clemson, lately they've not known to have a ton of speed there at safety. That's kind of been, I think they've been willing to sacrifice some speed for, other assets like coverage ability and football IQ and those kind of things. But I think Tay Harris and even Ricardo Jones are guys that are going to start, at least for a little while, change that mindset, so to speak. Wiggins said he almost left Oregon after his freshman year and got his money and became a first round. That I'm telling you, it happens with all of them, especially guys like Nate, who after their freshman season are going to be a high round draft pick, and they know they can go get loads more money elsewhere. There were some guys after last season that said, "Hey, you need to pay me more, or else I'm leaving." And for the most part, Clemson took care of those guys. Where do these athletes get their recruiting information? I followed recruiting for several years and know so little. Can't imagine how it is for these 17-year-old kids. I'm not sure what you're asking specifically, but I'll say this. When you're a 16, 17-year-old kid in high school and you've got a bunch of offers and a bunch of teams after you, you got a bunch of schools telling you what you want to hear. Um, Clemson's kind of always handled those things differently. Yeah, you'll hear football recruits, talking about how much they appreciate the coaches at Clemson being transparent with them and tell them exactly how they or exactly where they stand, when it comes to offers and stuff. And I know there was a kid at Clemson Saturday who was expecting an offer back in the summer, and it never came. And things changed. Something changed, and the offer never came. And the coaching staff has been very upfront and very transparent about it. Told him why, exactly where things stand, and a lot of those guys, they appreciate that. You're not going to get that at a lot of these other schools. They're going to tell these kids what they want to hear. You come in here, you start day one, even though the coach knows good and well they're not going to start. As we all know, Dabo ain't going to promise a starting job to anybody. That's what hurt him in the portal last year with a couple of guys. But and if that's the kind of stuff you're talking about, you gotta. It always helps to have parents that can weed through the BS and know what's real and what's not. It always helps. Woods has a tackle for loss rate that is subpar, only 1 sack. If you're gonna judge Peter Woods, if you're gonna go by the box score to gauge how good Peter Woods has been, then you're probably not going to be all that impressed, because for a lot of defensive linemen, the box score don't tell the whole story, especially with the side of the defensive line he's playing on. At that spot, Parker's going to get more of the sacks just by nature of the game. But again, he's not your typical defensive end. He's not gonna. What they want him to do is set the edge and be disruptive. And I think he's done that. He's not gonna be a guy that has a high number of sacks. It's just not who he is. He's more of a defensive tackle playing out there. I mean, look at DeMonte Capart's tackle for loss rate, as you call it, and how many sacks he's got. It definitely does not tell the tale. That guy's probably been more disruptive than anybody along that defensive line. And the last few weeks, I don't even think he's been 100%. He's still doing it. Got teamed up a little bit Saturday. I just don't know that that's the best way to gauge what kind of impact Woods is having on the game. Is Cortez Mills potentially back on the board with OU firing their OC? No. If he were to leave Oklahoma, just sitting here right now, if he were to leave Oklahoma for another school, I would think it's going to be Nebraska. He's already kind of flirted with going out there, for a lot. I'm just going to say no. Higher NFL draft pick, more or West Coast. Oh, we a long ways off from that. If I had to guess right now, I'm going TJ. I might be wrong about that. It's just a guess, but I am a big believer in TJ Moore. I think he's going to be a dog. Didn't have a problem with a lot of Nate's comments, but this was a bit Rich, I think he don't do the portal. He hate the NIL too, though. If you don't pay nobody, eventually they're gonna leave. Well, we already know Dabo don't like the portal, and he's not a big fan of the NIL. But with the way it's implemented now, I mean, I don't think that's any big revelation there that Nate was giving up. This is, I kind of feel the same way too. It feels like the Antonio Williams jet sweep is a better substitute than the Shipley swing passes. I think the top two offensive improvements are the O line and Cade's running. Oh, man, I got a gnat flying around in here. I think the offensive line is just the improvement seen there has just trickled down to everything else. I thought a lot of times last year, Cade looked like a quarterback that had no faith in his pass protection. You know, kind of something similar I said about Sellers earlier. He looks like a guy that doesn't trust the pass protection. And if you don't trust the pass protection, everything else is sped up. Add in the fact that the game's still too fast for you, man, and it's just amped up to the umpteenth degree. And I thought that was a lot of what we were seeing with Cade last year. It's hard to put into words the impact Matt Luke's hiring has had on this program, man. It is unbelievable. I said before the season that I expected improvement, but I thought we'd see the biggest jump from year one to year two. I was wrong. Those guys, his energy, like in pregame, if you watch him down there, he has so much energy, and it seems like it's kind of infectious, man. And they're playing at a different level emotionally and at a different level from a production standpoint. I mean, they are just so much better. Watch one of those guys get out and try to pull, and then go back and watch one of those guys try to do that last year. We're talking about, man, two way different things. And a lot of Garrett Riley's offense, calls for those kind of things from the offensive line, particularly in the run game. Let's get those offensive linemen out pulling on traps and stuff. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And so is Klubnik's running. Him adding, probably 10 pounds of muscle. He looks different. He just looks a little more grown up, a little thicker, a little stronger, and it's led to him being harder to bring down. Last year, he'd go down when you blew on him. This year he's able to run through some of those things, and it's definitely, you definitely got to account for him in the running game. Absolutely, 100%. I think those two. I would also add that I think those two wide receivers have raised the bar in the wide receiver room, and it has made all those guys better. Riley seems to like the double pass with Antonio. Looks fun. Not sure it would work versus elite defenses. Well, not the one he threw Saturday, man. That thing. And when I watched it back on television this morning, you didn't really. You could not tell from the television broadcast how long that thing stayed up in the air. It didn't seem like it was ever coming down, and it was a wounded duck. It was not a really good pass. The one at Wake Forest was a little bit better, a little bit more. There was a little bit more precision there, but he does seem to like it, and it's all about getting those DBs to buy it, whether it's going to work or not. Do you think Robert Saleh would be a good replacement for Wes Good? I don't think Wes is going anywhere. Does he have the fire Brent Venables had? No, I'm not sure many people do. And firiness is great and all, but I mean, that's not what makes a great defensive coordinator. I also think Wes is a little more fiery than people give him credit for. I've seen it; he can get a little fiery. But I don't see that he's going anywhere. So to me, that's a non-starter. No, Justin Kirkland's not a Gamecock. I've seen I've seen him. I'm familiar with him on Facebook. He's a Clemson fan. Do I think SMU can win out? Yeah, their schedule's not very daunting. If you look at the tiebreakers, let's say Miami, Clemson, SMU all went out. There's a very distinct possibility Clemson could be the odd man out there because North Carolina State and Florida State has done nothing to help their opponent win percentage and those kind of things that fall in line with those tiebreakers. But to answer your question, yeah, I think SMU has a chance to run the table. I'm not saying they will, but I do. Their quarterback's pretty good. I got to watch him a little bit Saturday night. I thought he played pretty well. They got to come over here and play Duke this weekend night game there in Durham. Duke is 6-1. The last time you got to go back a long ways to find a 6-1 team that wasn't ranked in the top 25. Duke is the first one since. See if I can find it here. First unranked 6-1 power conference team since 2015. So that's definitely not going to be an easy one. Although I would definitely give SMU the nod there. They host Pitt after that. That's their toughest test remaining. After that, they get Boston College at home. They go on the road to Virginia, and they host Cal. That's it. So, yeah, they have a chance to run the table. They got to get through Duke, and they got to get through Pitt. But if they can get through those two games, it's definitely worth keeping an eye out on. I don't know when I don't have the orange and white date or orange and purple scrimmage dates in front of me. The only exhibition they're playing is going to be against another team is going to be in Alabama, but I don't have an opening day lineup or a starting rotation for you yet. Let's get through fall ball. I need to go. I'm hoping I'm gonna get to go watch them scrimmage some. Ask me again after that, and I'll have a better idea. Thoughts on Jay Haynes? Not sure why I see so much hype on Twitter. Am I missing something there? I think Jay Haynes is almost the perfect type of back to be the backup to Maffa. He's got really good vision. He's got the speed to take it to the house anytime he touches the ball. He needs more reps. He just needs a little bit more experience. He spent most of last year hurt, didn't even get to practice a lot. He's just a redshirt freshman. But he is a great change of pace guy to have there with Maffa. That's why I always like the idea of him being the second string running back over Keith Adams. Because with Adams, you're getting just more of the same that you get with Maffa. Just probably not quite as well rounded, not quite as talented. But I think Jay Haynes has got the potential to be a really good change of pace back. I don't know that he'll ever be an every down guy just because he's a little undersized, but he can be a really good change of pace guy. I think Tate and the other 26 guy might go baseball route, or at least one of those. Tate has told me on more than one occasion his future is football. He doesn't even know that he's going to play baseball at the collegiate level. He said he'd like to play it at least his freshman year, but that he's looking at playing football. I've not heard a peep about Brock Bradley in the baseball draft. Not one peep. Does Amari stay committed? Yes. I think those fires have been put out. Why don't Dabo pay for players? Who says he doesn't? All I said is he doesn't get into bid wars. I mean, people think that Clemson's not paying NIL money. They absolutely are. If that was the case, you're not getting hardly any of these kids to come, and if you do get them to come, they're not going to stay. So payers are getting paid at Clemson. That's a big misconception that a lot of people in the media like to twist and use some quotes from Dabo out of context. They absolutely get paid. That's the thing. Everyone loves Haynes, but all I see is him running into blockers, missing a gap, not breaking anything off. It's like 2 yards carry. Actually, he averages 5 yards a carry. For comparison's sake, Maffa averages 6.5. Keith Adams Jr. averages 3.8. 5 yards a carry is not too bad. Again, he's still a young back. He's basically a true freshman because he had all of his freshman season taken away because of injury. Next 2 weeks going to feel like forever. Bye weeks always seem to last for eternity. Speak for yourself, bro. Speak for yourself. I have been waiting on this bye week so I could be home for a few days. I'll be back out on the road before you know it. Which recruiting service is the most accurate? Yeah, it's just a crapshoot, man. They each have their pros and cons. I don't even know which one I would say is the most accurate. The best thing I could tell you is to look at the composite, a 24/7 composite, because it takes, and on three's industry ranking might do the same, but I'm not. On three's my least favorite of the services. But if you're going to look at rankings, look at the 24/7 composite rankings because it factors all of the recruiting services rankings into that one ranking. Were we struggling on defense because of complacency or was it coaching? How about neither? How about because you were running in a lot of third and fourth string guys with little to no experience, and most of them freshmen and redshirt freshmen? That's what it was. Why you got to say more going to be a dog? Don't jinx us. I said the same thing about Tyler Brown last year. That turned out all right. Yeah, I don't know where Donovan Murph's going to go yet. I think it's probably going to come down to the two in-state schools. Clemson needs to get him back on campus for an official here over the next, before the end of the season. They're starting to run out of opportunities. Yeah, I can't tell you which one be left out yet because it goes by win percentage of opponents and stuff. So you have to get through the regular season, but Clemson definitely could be the odd man out. Came out the other day that Clemson is up there with NIL with some of the best 50. Yeah, I would have to seriously question where those numbers came from, my man. If it's saying Clemson's raising $15 million NIL dollars every year for just football, I'm gonna have to say seriously if they're saying they're one up there with some of the best programs in the country. Yeah, I got it. Somebody sent me an article the other day suggesting that, and I think it was from 24/7, and all they did was use On Three's NIL valuation. Yeah, that number's a joke if that's what it's going by, because that NIL evaluation thing on Three's a joke. They had no idea what some of these kids were making. It's just a way to try to bring in subscribers. I don't know that the 110 Society is going to put out very specific numbers to begin with. You might get a lump sum number, but you got to remember that goes all sports, not just football. $9.3 in 1 year sounds more like it. But that you're not ever going to get the true numbers from every school. It's just not going to happen. Last one, I got to get out of here. Again, if Clemson, SMU, and Miami go undefeated in the ACC, you can't answer who gets in right now because you got to go through, the tiebreakers. Here are the tiebreakers. Let me see if I can find them again. They get a little complex. Here we go. Number one would be combined head-to-head win percentage among the tied teams if all teams tied are common opponents. There are no, those three don't play each other. So if all the tied teams are not common opponents, the tied team that defeated each of their tied, the tied team that defeated each of the other tied teams. Don't have that because they didn't play each other. Win percentage versus all common opponents would be the next one. After that, it's win percentage versus common opponents based on their order of finish. So there's just not going to be no way to answer that yet until you get further along, maybe even until, the last week of the season. But there is a distinct possibility that Clemson could beat the odd man out. Am I doing anything for Halloween? Nope. My two kids are grown. I'm old. I think my Halloween days are over. And with that, I go to bid you guys farewell. Appreciate everybody tuned in. Hope we didn't drive Justin off. He's here a lot of weeks. And again, I know he's not a Gamecock fan. He's just one of those guys he reminds me of myself 10, 15 years ago, very pessimistic. Right back out here next Monday. Bye week or not, we'll be here. See y'all then.